Latin America is no stranger to missing persons. Thousands went missing in the 1970s and 80s during various military dictatorships. And as Laura Carlsen tells us in her View from the Americas, finding out what really happened to them depends on who you ask.
In George Orwell's novel 1984, the totalitarian state's slogan is "Who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past." A country's historic memory unites people along common storylines. Nations and societies are built on myths that glorify an often imaginary past. But all history holds its crimes and shames. These crimes are unforgettable for the victims and the survivors, but often forgotten by the powers that be, especially if they were the ones responsible for the crimes. In Latin America, countries are demanding the truth about the past, forming commissions to investigate crimes of the continent's dirty wars, drug wars, and dictatorships. In Argentina, 68 members of the last military dictatorship, which ended in 1983, just went on trial for kidnapping, torture, homicide, and piloting death flights where captors were pushed out of airplanes. In Colombia, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights opened an investigation into alleged homicide, disappearance, and torture by government forces during the eviction of protesters from the Palace of Justice in 1985. In Mexico City, a $2 million memorial to the victims of drug war violence has become a major controversy. The Movement for Peace with Justice, that proposed a monument to remember the victims, now rejects it because it was built on military land, and they believe the armed forces have been a major factor in drug war violence that they say has left some 80,000 Mexicans dead. Others protest the memorial because they feel the victims had it coming, that most were somehow involved with the cartels. They forget that no one, not even a criminal, deserves to be summarily murdered, and no one knows what really happened because the Mexican justice system fails to investigate, resolve, and punish crimes. What or who to remember and what to forget? Who has the right to determine the historic memory? Women, children, indigenous people, and victims are rarely given a voice or a page in the history books. In making public a painful past, the victims seek justice to soothe the anguish of loved ones lost to violence. They also want to determine a future where crimes do not go unpunished, even when committed by authorities, and where what happened before cannot be repeated. In Latin America, finally, the struggle over who controls the past has two sides, and in the end, it is indeed a struggle over who will control the future and what that future will look like. For Americas Now, I'm Laura Carlsen.
That brings us to the conclusion of our broadcast. Thanks for watching, and please join us again next week for another edition of Americas Now. See you then.